Hi, I'm Linda Mao, and welcome to Art This Week. On this week's episode, we visit Holly Johnson Gallery and speak with artist Bret Slater about his work in the exhibition, Otis and Bret. Now for Art This Week. Hi, I'm Liz Trosper. Welcome to Art This Week. I'm here with artist Bret Slater at Holly Johnson Gallery, and we're talking a little bit about Bret's work. Bret, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So tell us a little bit about your artistic process. You're working on these canvases. You have a collaboration with Otis Jones, who's here in the show with you. Tell us a little bit about your process.
Well, I'd say it's kind of, in a sense, it's just painting. I start with literally nothing. Think of a height, a width, a thickness, build the support, maybe find a support, maybe buy a support, store-bought, which is rarer, but kind of determine a size that I'd like to make, and then think about the shape, think about the structure, think about if I want rounded corners, if I want an oblong kind of non-shape, if I want something super traditional like a rectangle or a square, if I don't, and then think about, okay, do I want to use canvas? Do I want to use linen? Do I want to use Belgian linen? Do I want to use really cheap linen? Do I want to use a weird fabric that I found or bought it in a store? And then it's kind of stretching that, thinking about then, okay, well, that's kind of feels this way, this is this shape, this is this color due to the canvas or linen or whatever, and what colors am I thinking of lately, or what am I reminiscing about? What do I feel that I want to bring into the world or whatever? What do I feel like I want to reincorporate and make a new thing with? And then it's kind of responding to each step. Colors, I think, certain times calls for a texture. I use acrylic, so in a sense, acrylic painting is a additive layering kind of process. There's no wiping away the same way really there is with oil. I mean, unless you use slow dry acrylic, which I don't. But there is, of course, a then subtractive element to the work, which here is like, cutting out, ripping off areas that are painted on, wiping away things that are poured that I'd like to see revealed again. And kind of responding to things until the piece feels like it's in its own element enough, and it is its own entity enough to exist, to be a painting in the world, and then you got to stop.
That's interesting, because I'm hearing you use a lot of sensory words, like a lot of feeling, pushing and pulling.
Yeah, definitely.
And those kinds of things. And Otis had said that he's sort of against ideas, and it's more about sensing and feeling.
Absolutely.
And phenomenon. And do you take that same approach?
Oh yeah, it's all about physicality. I mean, that's the kind of the bottom line of our work. Even like if you look at I think the oldest cave paintings we know of now are the like Chauvet caves in France, just like 15,000 years preceding Lascaux caves. And there's an extreme amount of perspective, I would say, not representational perspective in these cave paintings of animals and then handprints, but a real nomadic perspective, a perspective about what does this thing mean to us? It's more about the ritual and act of painting, of maybe trying to make permanent this spiritual relationship between man and animal, man and man and painting, man and material, and that's the kind of physicality that Otis and I think both look to bring to painting.
Well, you guys are engaging other forms, you and Otis are engaging other forms of art making, like sculptural practices, bringing building these things and taking sort of a non-traditional approach, so engaging with tradition, but also in some ways eschewing that. So I'm curious about what you think about art histories. Who are some of the artists that you're thinking of? How do you position yourself to that big tradition of painting and art making?
If it's fair, I mean, I position myself within the history of painting. So from those cave paintings, Chauvet, Lescaut, all the way to present day. Painting is kind of eternal in a way. It's the closest thing, you know, we know of that breaches the eternal, the infinite, you know, the absent, but yet something that we feel maybe is lacking in the present. And I think about all different types of artists. Of course, my favorite are painters, or maybe not of course, but my favorite artists are, my favorite thing is painting, so my favorite artists are painters. And I think about a ton of painters. But to be honest, at this juncture, I'd like to give myself due credit and say that honestly, I'm not thinking of anyone else's work when I'm in the studio. I'm not thinking of Otis's work even. And Otis is my favorite painter, but I'm not thinking about Otis's work. I'm just, you know, my work has become its own kind of life force, and I'm kind of continuing to respond to signals or whatever it is, you know, that I'm receiving and continuing to make things. I'm extremely invested in paint, and again, I work at MoMA for a day job, you know, and as a temp, a preparator, and I'm in contact with, you know, some of the best painting of all time, every day. But I would say, even so, I'm still not thinking of those painters, those paintings that I'm seeing.
I'm curious about the differences in color choice, and you mentioned a little bit about that in terms of having a conversation with the materials and a certain color and the application, and it sounds very tactile, but can you talk about the colors that you use and your relationship with those?
Absolutely. And I'd like to actually start by saying that even 2 years ago, I never thought I would use orange ever. And now it's one of the only colors I'm using. It's interesting that way. It's funny. I mean, that's something that, you know, Joseph Albers once said about color as well, about color and about one's work and about one's usage of color in their work. And he suggests, you know, if there's a color you hate, incorporate it into your work, and I guarantee eventually, if not very soon, you'll start to become, you know, almost obsessed with that color. And that's kind of what happened with me in orange. But I will definitely talk about also, my color comes from a constant love I've always had for I would call them almost amulets. Things that, inanimate objects, generally action figures made of kind of rubbery plastic, similar to acrylic, that I would just bring around with me in my backpack to school or whatever, anywhere I went. And I would never really do anything with it, you know. It was just nice to kind of know it was there with me. And it kind of made me feel just more fulfilled, kind of, in life, to know that that thing was in my bag, and that thing was often, again, an action figure, and I was obsessed with X-Men. I still am obsessed with the X-Men, and you know, Marvel Comics, also DC Comics, Batman, and others, and it's kind of funny, if I may. Recently, I've been working on these paintings that I am literally referring to as amulets, or amulet paintings that are just acrylic, only acrylic. So I've been kind of,
Yeah, this is incredible.
the idea is for the viewer to maybe, it would be on a low table or a pedestal or something, and the viewer could handle it. There was one in a group show that Kevin Tedora curated at UTD a year ago, and this is the second one I've made. Before showing them, I'm carrying them around with me for a while, and the hope would be that the owner of the artwork, maybe even collector, if that is the type who would buy this, would be able to take it with them and carry it with them.
Totem-like. This is incredible.
Thank you.
Way to shock me. I did not expect this. This is pretty incredible. So would you consider this part of like an in-process work? Is this something
This is
finished?
a finished work, yeah.
This is finished,
Yeah.
and you carry it with you.
I've been carrying it with me for a few weeks, yeah.
This is incredible. So maybe this is a hiding part of the show? Maybe?
Maybe,
No.
we'll see. I mean,
Well, this is really tactile. So it
Yes.
seems like, everything that you're talking about, this takes it to the next step. This is very, very beautiful.
No, thank you.
I'm gonna keep it. No, I'm gonna give it back to you. I really am curious about where you guys are in your conversation with Otis and these works here that are hanging together, and your perspective on what you want people to take away from the show.
I want people to take away from the show whatever it is that they receive from the show. Like, the last thing I want to do is direct someone's thought towards a specific meaning of some kind.
Well, so really to engage, to really come to this and to
Well,
engage.
for really even for any artwork to be activated, it needs a life, It needs a human presence. So that's just kind of what, the work's about. My work, Otis's work, it's about a one-to-one direct interaction with viewer and object, and it's kind of the most, in my opinion, painting is the most direct visual and philosophical, spiritual experience that I can do with anything, is to make a painting. And that relationship of viewing a painting, again, there's something just so direct about it. And I don't think sculpture doesn't have that. I just tend to think in this way that, again, most likely because of my obsession since I was young with comic books, cartoons, action figures, all of these things that were theoretically, there were, people moving in space and little three-dimensional objects, but really there's a certain kind of frontality and flatness to all that. I mean, especially with comic books and the television screen, there's a frontality and a real what like Frank Stella refers to as like a visual imprint. That's something that a painting can do, in my opinion, that a sculpture cannot do. And but of course, at the same time, the object is the concern. The thing itself, bringing the thing into existence, and then and into its own is my concern. So of course everything else matters besides just the front as well. The sides, the thickness, the top, the bottom. I mean, it's all, for me, it's all important. Which does have to do with the low hanging height of the work as well.
It's very facial level.
In a way, yeah. I mean, but then the smaller work kind of hits you kind of here, So
you're having this intimate
it's just more of like a intimate and physical contact with a painting.
You're starting to sound like an interactive interactive artist is with your, I'm so interested in this like traditional approach, and you have these ideas of very interactive and digital, you know, process color kind of references with comic books and things like that. So this is really interesting. But Bret Slater, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We want to thank Bret for speaking with us. For more information on Bret, go to bretslater.com. For more information on the exhibition, go to hollyjohnsongallery.com. That's it for Art This Week. Thanks for watching.
I still got your Polaroid.